Hey everybody, welcome to Crackpot, the podcast where each and every week we dive into a different conspiracy theory and discuss the merits or the demerits of each. We're your hosts. I'm Tim.
And I'm Zach.
Hello, Zach.
There it was again. Different. I won't get into that now.
Look, you should know by now.
It's that Wisconsin accent of yours.
Wisconsin. You seem excited about this episode. I don't even know what it's about.
I'm jazzed.
Jazzed?
Yeah, it's not even a jazz topic.
Hyped? Is it about Coltrane? What?
Actually, you know what?
Yeah.
There's some stuff there with Coltrane, too.
No, what?
Well, I mean, he had his own church.
Well, yes.
But, I mean, there's stuff.
No, he did not.
Okay, fair
people founded a church.
Yeah, okay. Good point.
Okay.
But still.
He's pretty cool.
Super cool.
I'll do an episode on Coltrane. It'll have nothing to do with conspiracy theories or the paranormal. It'll just be awesome.
I love it. We're just going to turn this into a jazz podcast. I love it.
Oh, anyway.
Yeah, well, okay, so today we're talking about, here I am right now, like, what are we actually really talking about?
How do I summarize this in one sentence? I don't know.
I know. There's a reason why this is an entire show. Is because I can't simply summarize what's going on here.
Okay.
But that's okay. And I will say it has to do with a couple of my favorite topics. Number one, obviously, chess. The game of.
I was going to say the recording studio in Chicago. Huh?
Oh, dude, another jazz.
Thank you.
Know,
it's more blues. But
yeah, fair enough. But they probably recorded some jazz there too. No, but so we're talking about some chess today.
Uh-huh.
We're also talking about spirits and spirit mediumship.
I don't know how you threaded that needle, but okay.
Well, it wasn't me. Like, this is so bonkers, dude. This is another one of those that it's like, okay, yeah, that's weird.
Okay. I know what mediumship is, and I know what chess is, and I don't really see how this is happening. So,
all right. So today, we're talking about a chess game that lasted 7 years and 8 months.
Uh-huh.
It was played between a Russian chess grandmaster and a Hungarian chess grandmaster.
Uh-huh.
Ultimately, by the way, I'll spoil it right now, the Russian won.
Okay.
And his name was, and by the way, I should say at the very front end of the show, we've got a bunch of European names here. And although I speak fluent European, I will say this much.
Uh-huh.
I will probably butcher the names just so you guys at home can kind of like,
Yeah.
Americanize, like pick up on what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay. So
yeah.
I'm not even going to bother
In
with
true crackpot.
That's right. I'm just going to say it like
all mispronunciations are intentional.
They stick. Exactly. The Russian chess master was Viktor Korchnoi, and the Hungarian chess master was Geza Maroczy.
Two of my favorite champions, chess players, yeah.
Very progressive in their field, certainly, and well-regarded, no doubt about it. And like I said, 7 years and 8 months.
That's a long game.
That's a long game.
Yeah.
Small detail I have not added just yet. Geza Maroczy, the Hungarian chess master, was long dead before the game even started.
I love how you said that like an NPR reporter as well. Was long dead before the game even started. Wait, what?
Yeah, so he had died some 35-ish years before this game even started. Kicked the bucket, pushing up daisies, lights out. What's even happening?
Okay, I'm starting to see where this might go.
Okay, so truthfully, what happened here was that we had a living Russian chess grandmaster who agreed to take on a legend, this Geza Maroczy, who was this dead Hungarian chess grandmaster, but they decided to play this game via a spirit medium by the name of Robert Rollans.
Uh-huh.
So you're probably like, how does this even work?
How does this even work?
How do you do this?
What is going
Who
on?
even thinks of this stuff, right?
Well, yes, all these questions and more.
My job today is to tell you those answers and also get you along for the wild and wacky ride that is a legitimate chess game amongst two masters.
A paranormal chess game that spans centuries. How long? 30 years dead?
Yeah, about 35.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's get into this. And I would say, like, you have to know a couple of names here to get started. And so I'll try to keep things pretty concise, pretty brief, and just give you what you need to know. Because, and I don't want to spoil anything here, and you're not going to be surprised to hear this. In all actuality, maybe the game itself wasn't even the weirdest part about all of this.
Yes.
I'm serious.
I'm not surprised.
That might have been the most normal thing happening here. All right, so let's start with a gentleman by the name of Dr. Wolfgang Eisenbeiss. He was a German-speaking Swiss economist known for his publications, which I'm sure read like Dan Brown novels here.
Clearly, yes.
One of the highlights titled here, Der Bruch eines Debakels der US-Kreditkrise. Literally translated. Script of a debacle, the U.S. credit crisis.
Yeah. I read that.
In German.
It's a page turner. It's good.
There's a cliffhanger. M. Night Shyamalanian ending, if you will. No, but so like I point this out because he was an economist. He had no business even like arranging anything here, but like here's what happened.
When you say arranging, are you talking like in the chess world or the paranormal world? Or all of the above?
Well, here's what I'm trying to say. So he's a serious dude.
Yeah.
He was an amateur chess player. He just loved the game.
Oh, okay.
And his involvement in all of this, I'll outline later. But I'll get off Eisenbeiss here quickly because I'll say there's actually not much more you need to know about this guy, and he's not going to play a major role in the story here, although he did have a hand in everything that transpired.
Sure.
So you have Dr. Wolfgang Eisenbeiss. Next, here's a name you got to remember for sure, and this was a friend of Dr. Eisenbeiss. This was a Robert Rollans. Rollans, interestingly enough, was a musician born in Romania way back in 1914. So he's actually quite a bit older than Eisenbeiss. I actually couldn't get a date on Eisenbeiss' birthday, but anyways, he must have been born in the 40s or 50s because he's still alive today. Which is interesting.
Okay.
Rollans long dead, right? He was born in 1914. But as it turns out, Rollans was, like I said, born in Hungary, but he moved to West Germany in the early 1970s. And in addition to Rollans being a musician, he was also a clairvoyant. So he claimed to have mediumistic abilities, meaning he could actually talk to the dead or channel the dead.
Sure. And were his abilities a two-way communication? Like he could actually talk and receive? And
Yeah, as I understand it. So what's interesting about his story is that he was in his early 30s when he really truly discovered and started to hone his abilities. And what he said was that he just sat down to do some journaling, to do some letter writing very, very early in the morning or late at night, depending on how you look at it, 2 a.m.
Yeah.
And this was about when he was 33 years old. And he said, I sat down to write, and this is where I'm quoting now. He said, I sensed a force taking my hand to write, and the words were, don't be afraid. It's me, your brother, Roby. Now, his brother Roby had been dead for 8 years by this point. And so that's how Rollans had discovered his gift of mediumship, which is basically like, whoa, somebody's taking over here, writing, using me as a vessel to channel their communication.
That's super creepy. I've never heard of that.
Well, and here's the thing, though, too, guys. So if you haven't already, check out some of the, end-of-life episodes, Surviving Death. We did a, full-on mediumship episode. It's all super interesting. It's all on the Patreon feed. And if you know a bit about how this works, I think it'll help with this episode.
Mm-hmm.
So I've highlighted a couple of things about Rollans, but there are actually some more things you need to know. And this is really super critical and important for, I think, helping with the legitimacy of what actually happened. So Rollans, he was actually an acquaintance of Dr. Eisenbeiss. They knew each other for a few years, and it's important to understand that Eisenbeiss actually trusted Rollans. Didn't see him as a charlatan or a snake oil salesman. Also, super important, Rollans didn't know how to play the game of chess.
Okay.
No familiarity with the game, didn't know how to play it, etc. Actually had to learn how to play it as he was going. We'll get into that later. On top of that, Rollans received zero money, zero payments, all this stuff for the chess match. And on top of that, to wrap things up here, he didn't know anything about the country of Hungary. And that's where a character later will come into play. Okay, so you have Eisenbeiss, this economist. You have Rollans, a spirit medium with no history of the game of chess, was a trusted acquaintance of Eisenbeiss, didn't know anything about Hungary, and lastly, didn't take any payments for any of his services.
Sure.
So I guess pretty much as credible of a situation as you can organize.
This is weird. This is weird. Okay.
Next, we got to talk about Viktor Korchnoi. He is central to this story in the sense that he was the chess grandmaster that was playing.
Oh, the Russian guy.
He was the Russian guy. Yep.
Okay.
He was playing in the game. Now, Viktor Korchnoi, he was born in 1931, died in 2016. Which to me was like 2 years ago. Yeah. He was born in Leningrad and defected to the Netherlands back in 1976, ultimately residing in Switzerland before he obtained his Swiss citizenship. Incredibly accomplished chess player. He's considered to be one of the strongest players to never have become the world chess champion. So I like to think of him as the Minnesota Vikings of the chess world.
Oh, wow. Keep going.
The jokes write themselves. But to give you a sense of some of his skills and abilities, I mean, like, he didn't win the literal world championship, but listen to these credentials. He was a candidate for the world championship on 10 occasions. 1962, 68, 71, 74, 77, 1980, 83, 85, 88, and 91. He was also a 4-time USSR chess champion, 5 times a member of the Soviet teams that won the European Championship, and 6 times a member of the Soviet teams that won the Chess Olympiad. He played competitive chess until basically he was on his deathbed. And at the age of 75, he won the 2006 World Senior Chess Championship and became the oldest person ever to be ranked among the world's top 100 players.
He seems pretty good.
The guy knows how to play chess. That's all I'm trying to say.
Point made. Wow. All right.
So to keep coming back to these names, because they're all kind of hard to remember and they all have different roles. Again, you have Dr. Eisenbeiss, the Swiss doctor of economics. Robert Rollans, the Romanian-born medium. Viktor Korchnoi, a Russian-born Swiss chess grandmaster. And that's what you need to know for now.
Okay. Cast of characters set.
Yes. Let's talk about how all of this actually unfolded.
I'm dying to know.
Okay, so this is where the details are a little bit murky, but evidently at the behest of a friend of Dr. Eisenbeiss. Apparently he had a friend in Germany that was a dentist that suggested this whole thing. Also, I heard differing accounts that perhaps this was Eisenbeiss's own idea. Anyways, he had this idea to arrange for a chess match between Korchnoi and a longtime dead chess grandmaster.
Sure.
And so when he approached Korchnoi, of course, he said, "That's like ridiculous. Why would you even consider this?
I don't want to play dead people. Come on."
But look, if he's not going to be the world grand champion, perhaps he can be like champion of everything,
champion of the living and the dead, or at least the dead.
So I guess he may have that notch in his belt too, which is pretty sweet to think about. But basically what happened was Eisenbeiss approached Korchnoi and said, "Hey, of all the world famous chess masters that have long passed, who do you want to play against?
Who do you want to play?" What a cool question, right?
Yeah, this would be like, okay, who do you want to play baseball with? Who do you want to throw a football with? Right? It's like the same thing.
Living or dead, who would you invite to your dinner party? It's like, I mean, yeah.
100% serious. And so then evidently Eisenbeiss received a list from Korchnoi of these famous, long dead grandmasters that he could play against. Then Eisenbeiss took that list back to Rollans, the spirit medium, and said, "Who can you get a hold of?"
Can you make a few calls? See who picks up. Like, what?
That's exactly
What?
it.
Okay, sorry. What year again are we talking? Decade-ish? What?
Sure. So this actually started around 1985.
Okay.
So mid-'80s. Korchnoi's at the height of his probably fame,
I
and
think it was like 15 years ago, basically.
that's right. But this really happened, and then so Rollans took this list, and he came back and he said, "Look, of all these people, there's one that I can get a hold of. His name is Geza Maroczy. Don't forget that name.
Mm-hmm.
Enter
Geza Maroczy. Wait, who? I forgot the name.
Yeah, Geza Maroczy. And it's spelled Maroczy. So it sounds Italian, but it's actually Hungarian.
Interesting.
Yep. So Geza was born in Hungary back in 1870, March 3rd of 1870. He started with the amateur circuit. He won several first prizes in international events. And between 1902 and 1908, he took part in 13 tournaments and won 5 first prizes and 5 second prizes. Interestingly, and I didn't really know that much about chess going into this. Like, I know how to play, and I play with my boys sometimes, but like, Maroczy was so famous that actually there's a literal chess move named after him.
Impressive.
It turns out that's not that uncommon, though, either for some of these grandmasters. But I didn't even realize that there are very specific types of moves that people are famous for, that they then name them after.
The so-and-so defense or the whatever. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. But if you think about it, like the early 1900s, it's the turn of the century. This is all obviously, like commercial flight.
Yes.
So it wasn't that easy to really be like a full-time, dedicated, professional chess master.
Speak for yourself, but I'll let it slide.
Yeah, dude, we gotta play
on the chess circuit.
So he actually put down the game of chess to actually start working. He worked as like an insurance auditor of some sort, basically a clerk. And it wasn't until the 1930s again that he actually started playing professionally here and there. But it wasn't his main thing. But he had amassed enough notoriety and fame that he was well recognized in the community. But again, like I said, if you think about the time in Europe especially, they weren't playing a lot of chess, I have to imagine. And so despite the fact that he wasn't playing, regularly, or he wasn't participating in a lot of these events, he was an actual certified chess grandmaster, named so in 1950 by the FIDE, which, believe it or not, stands for like the World Chess Federation or something like that.
North American Aero Defense.
Actually, the F, it's a French name, so like the F doesn't even fit in there. And just to speak a little bit further about his accomplishments, another very famous chess grandmaster by the name of Jose Raul Capablanca, a Cuban chess player, he said, and I'm quoting here, "As a chess player, he, Maroczy, was a little lacking in imagination and aggressive spirit. His positional judgment, the greatest quality of the true master, was excellent. A very accurate player and an excellent endgame artist. He became famous as an expert on queen endings. In a tournament many years ago, he won a knight endgame against the Viennese master Marco, which has gone into history as one of the classic endings of this type." I bring this up because, like I said, for one, Maroczy was obviously well accomplished, but more importantly, and don't forget this later, he was noted for his skills in the end game, meaning he may set up a game such a way that he's kind of baiting his opponent to ultimately then win the game.
I like it.
Interestingly enough, Capablanca was also a name that Korchnoi had put on his original list.
Oh, but he didn't pick up the call. Huh?
He was too busy, evidently, doing afterlife activities. So that's really crazy. After Rollans had established communication with Maroczy, he wanted to understand, why would you agree, you Maroczy on the other side, to participate in this bizarre chess match?
Yeah.
According to Rollans, and I'm quoting Maroczy via
medium.
Rollans, He said, and I'm quoting here, "First, because I also want to do something to aid mankind living on Earth to become convinced that death does not end everything, but instead the mind is separated from the physical body and comes up to us now into a new world where individual life continues to manifest itself in a new unknown dimension. Second, being a Hungarian patriot, I want to guide the eyes of the world into the direction of my beloved Hungary a little bit.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Wow.
So the love of the game also wants the world to know.
Don't mess with Hungary.
Well, that too, but also like the spirit, the essence, the mind continues after death.
That's a very noble pursuit. And also he's probably just wants to play some chess against some, worthy opponents.
Well, and also too, like I would say, I called it out at the beginning, like some of these themes that he just said here are exactly the themes that we heard about in countless NDE, afterlife, spirit medium communications and such. So it's weird. All very consistent, which is all the more troubling.
It's true. Thank you for putting it that way. Yeah.
So we know all of our actors: Eisenbeiss, we have Rollans, we have Korchnoi, and we have Maroczy.
I want to jump ahead here. So Rollans, who is, remind me, Romanian,
but moved to West Germany.
Does he speak Hungarian?
No, he doesn't. And it took me a sec, but I had to think. He does not speak Hungarian.
Is the Hungarian chess guy communicating in Hungarian?
Yes.
Come on, really?
Now, okay.
Okay.
Now, you brought this up earlier than what I wanted to talk about, but it's fine.
I know,
it's fine.
but I can't.
What they said was the writings that were done by Rollans were both in kind of like a broken Hungarian and broken German.
Okay.
And if I will stand up for folks on the other side for a moment, and spirit mediums, that's not uncommon when it comes to channeling the dead in a language that a medium doesn't know.
Okay.
So it's not uncommon to have somebody who's like basically writing in a foreign language, albeit not perfectly, but that's fairly common, I guess.
Okay. Nevertheless.
Yeah.
All right.
You're probably wondering how this even works, right?
I have so many questions.
Okay. The logistics of the game actually were pretty simple. So as I understand it, Rollans, the medium, and Korchnoi were in two different places at the same time. One being in Switzerland, one being in West Germany. They each had their own chessboard. And according to Rollans, basically what would happen is he would start to feel his hand tingle. And that's when he knew he was getting his next chess move. And so what he would do is as soon as he felt his hand tingle, and he said, sometimes I'd be taking a shower.
Yeah.
He would stop what he was doing, he would sit down, and he would write the move that was relayed to him by Maroczy.
Oh, so he wasn't moving the actual pieces. It was like
E6.
Queen's knight.
Yeah, there's a whole grid system in the chessboard, and so
Do you understand that, by the way?
Not particularly.
I don't either. I feel like I should, but also I don't know why I would.
In my head, it's just like Battleship. Like it's got to be about the same. It's just a grid. So what would happen was Rollans would sit, write down the chess move wherever that piece was supposed to go.
Yeah.
He would call then Eisenbeiss, say, hey, I moved the queen to whatever.
Yeah.
And then Eisenbeiss would relay that to Korchnoi, who would then move the corresponding piece.
Okay.
And then it turns out Korchnoi would make his move, then relay it back to Rollans. And typically there was a pretty significant lag in the time that they were communicating. And this had to do with Rollans wasn't in great health.
Sure.
Also, he's waiting for a spirit to contact him. So
question, just, not to get into the logistics here too much, but like, why was Rollans using an intermedium, whereas Korchnoi was just communicating directly with the medium?
That never actually came up in the research, but I have two possible theories. One is because maybe there's a language gap, language barrier, perhaps.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. And then I think also maybe Eisenbeiss wanted to keep an eye on things, help continue the game, make sure everything was above board. That's my guess.
Okay, yeah, sure.
But that never came up, and that's actually an interesting point. And I know it's one of the things where you could say, well,
you got another person, maybe there's something, but okay.
But every move was written down by both parties.
Sure.
So it's not like, Eisenbeiss could go back and fabricate something later. It was all recorded.
That's a bad move. That's not what the Hungarian would actually do. Do this.
So apparently, and like I said, there would be some lag time between each of the actual moves, sometimes as much as 10 days or even a little bit longer. And evidently, Rollans and Korchnoi never had any direct contact with each other until September of 1992, which was basically right at the end of the game when they both agreed to meet on camera for a TV show.
Huh.
Ultimately, February 11th, 1993, Maroczy surrendered. He lost the game. And here's what Korchnoi said.
Yeah.
I'm quoting here. During the opening phase, Maroczy showed weakness. His play is old-fashioned. But I must confess that my last moves have not been too convincing. I'm not sure I'll win. He has compensated the faults of the opening by a strong end game. In the end game, the ability of a player shows up, and my opponent plays very well.
Fascinating. Okay. And sorry if you said this, but Rollans, the medium, he doesn't really play chess, does he?
He doesn't play chess.
He knows what the pieces are and he understands the concepts, I have to assume, but he couldn't beat most people, right?
We'll get to that in a sec.
Okay.
So, to be very clear, that's where the story actually ends.
Yeah.
I mean, Korchnoi won.
Korchnoi won.
It was a chess match that was very, very well played.
Victory once again for the living.
Who's keeping score, by the way?
I am.
Thank you. And so that was it. They just played this friendly game of chess via a spirit medium, and the spirit lost.
Yeah.
So what makes this possibly real?
Well, yeah.
This is where the other weird stuff comes in, Tim.
Okay.
All right. So about a year into the game, so this would be back in 1986.
Sure.
Eisenbeiss decided to seek additional evidence that the communicator, the spirit, was in fact Geza Maroczy. And he asked him via Rollans then to communicate a report about his life with special emphasis on the chess playing on Earth. And so on July 31st, 1986, Rollans sat down. He recorded a 38-page text with the details of Maroczy's life and a comment. And I'm quoting here, I am astonished when somebody does not believe me to be here personally because I know for sure that not all of us here are able to play chess. And interestingly, the text was partly in Hungarian, partly in German. And the fact is, in addition to this 38-page text that was written about Maroczy's life, Eisenbeiss also drafted a 91-question test for Rollans to ask Maroczy.
Yeah.
Including personal matters about Maroczy, as well as chess and some of the previous tournaments and experiences that Maroczy had participated in.
Like, what color was your suit when you got married? What street did you grow up on? What move did you use against so-and-so in the match of 1926?
100% no.
Like things that a normal person wouldn't know.
Well, this is what I really like about this. So they actually divided the questions into a couple of different categories. So they have what are just general knowledge. These are things that most people would know.
Potpourri.
They had encyclopedic knowledge, which are things that can be easily ascertained. Now, remember, guys, I know this is obvious, but this is really pre-viable internet, too.
Yeah.
So you'd have to go to a library for some of this stuff.
Yeah.
The next category was guessable or inferable, I suppose, just based on the question. Then it ramps up a notch. Then it gets into expert knowledge, but easy to investigate if you have specialist books readily accessible in libraries. Then they had expert knowledge. difficult to investigate, perhaps in hidden sources. And lastly, private knowledge, known by few persons only, not known to be written down. And it doesn't end there. Evidently, 90% of the questions on this giant questionnaire fell into the 3 most difficult categories.
Sure.
22% fell into the most difficult of all. This is the private knowledge. And you want to know the results?
I could guess.
79 out of 81 questions were correct.
I don't want to understate how impressive that is. I wish it were 100% questions. Like, how did the guy get 2 questions wrong on his own life?
Well, there was a bit of a scale, right? So think about this. Some of these questions could be a little bit more subjective in terms of the game of chess itself.
Oh, okay.
So there is some room for actual, like, well, if you do this or that.
Yeah.
So he got...
Okay, yeah, nevertheless, I am really picking nits here. But
exactly. And I think if I gave you a questionnaire of 81 questions...
on a Hungarian chess master that died many years ago?
Well, here's where I'm going with this.
I would get none right.
No, not even... Well, that, right? So that's the obvious point here. But, like, where I'm going with this is, if I asked you 81 questions about your own life and perhaps one of your own hobbies, you probably wouldn't get 100% either.
I'd probably get like half of them wrong, to be perfectly clear.
Your name, sir?
I don't know.
The podcast you host. Okay.
That's wild. That's weird.
That's more than weird, dude.
That is just, I don't even know what to think about that. So those questions were going on in the middle of the chess game. He's like, whoa. Time out. This is getting wild. Okay. Answer these.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
So if a, giant questionnaire wasn't enough, of course, Rollans was then directed to ask questions about some very famous chess matches that Maroczy participated in. And in fact, one was quite famous, and so, Eisenbeiss knew to ask about this, and it was one that took place back in Italy in 1930 in the city of San Remo against an opponent named Rami. And when asked if the name Rami meant anything to Maroczy, and again, now remember, like, you have Rollans who's like corresponding here, so like, hey, does the name Rami mean anything to you? Was basically the question without the background of a famous chess match.
Right.
Rollans came back, and now I'm quoting Maroczy. This is so weird, dude. He says, "I'm sorry to say that I never knew a chess player named Rami, but I think you are wrong with the name. I had a friend in my youth who defeated me when I was young, but he was called Rama with an H at the end. I then never saw the friend whom I so admired. In 1930 at the tournament of San Remo, who is also present, my old friend Rama, coming from Italy, he also participated in that tournament, and so it came about that I played against him in one of the most thrilling matches I ever played. I suspect that you were thinking about the same person, but gave the name incorrectly." So Eisenbeiss spelled it R-O-M-I.
Yeah.
And the spirit medium / Maroczy's
corrected him
with
details?
Yeah.
And like another instance?
Yeah. This would be like me saying...
That's impossible.
This would be like me saying, oh, does the name Day Marker 23 mean anything to you, Tim?
Well, it wasn't Day Marker 23. It was Day Marker 25. But I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah. What?
Uh-huh. So you now have...
What? That's like double blind kind of level. That's crazy. That's almost more impressive than the chess game.
I think so too. Can't end it there though, folks.
No,
so asked once again, for some more validation about whether or not Maroczy was real here. He was then asked, and I'm quoting here, who was the Austrian founder of the Vera Menchik Club? Vera Menchik was the first ever female world chess champion, holding the championship from 1927 until her death in a bombing during World War II in 1944. The Vera Menchik Club was an informal collection of men whom she defeated. And the Austrian founder was the first member and president, having lost to Menchik back in 1929. In the answer, Maroczy said he couldn't remember, but he speculated it to be one of 3 men Dr. Albert Becker was the correct answer, whom he actually guessed, but later kind of like wrote it off in the communication.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. Because that is implying, or maybe stating, that even when you're dead and you have like reached full level of consciousness and like whatever that is, like your memory's still faulty. It's like,
I hadn't thought of that way.
Right?
Yeah. The other thing too, I was like, well, if you're in the afterlife, you should surely know how to win the game of chess too.
You just tap into the Akashic records and just like know everything.
I thought so.
No,
I thought so too.
It's like, well, it might have been a couple guys. I don't know. It's been a long time. I forget.
I know. So then they said, all right, okay, you got that one wrong, but give us another thing that happened, while you were alive. And then Maroczy went on to describe another incident that happened back in 1929. Back in 1929 in Carlsbad, Germany. It was during this tournament that the world champion, Capablanca, by the way, he was from Havana, Cuba. He had taken up, apparently during this tournament, a Russian mistress who accompanied him to the tournament. Unexpectedly, Capablanca's Cuban wife turned up. Ooh. And detailing the event, Maroczy said, his face turned white and then red. I was there.
Oh, Jesus.
And listen to this. Because Capablanca was so discombobulated, he actually made what is known as a blunder, a disastrous next move, and lost uncharacteristically to an inferior opponent. So Maroczy was able to detail what happened, and also the fact that apparently this loss was a big deal.
Yeah. It's not only did he know about that, but he knew the details.
Yeah, his face turned bright white and then red.
Oh my God.
So to summarize,
who knew chess was so fascinating? I mean, I watched The Queen's Gambit, don't get me wrong, but
you're practically a chess grandmaster yourself, dude.
That's what I've been saying for a while.
Respect.
Thank
yeah.
you.
So you have this chess game between two chess masters, one living, one dead, lasted 8 years practically. Ultimately ended with the dead guy losing. And by the way, the facts of life, the detailed questions that were asked of him, got almost everything right, and not a lot of this information was easily ascertainable.
What is even going on? Does the World Chess Organization recognize this as a sanctioned match between chess grandmasters or something? I mean,
it may be a moot point at this point, but here's why people though think that this might be real.
Okay.
Besides
I don't know
else.
how.
Yeah.
I mean, I am super skeptical when it comes to this stuff. And I mean, honestly, just the idea of the game, it's well, I mean, who knows? Maybe someone is feeding him answers or something. You don't know.
You don't know.
It's everything else that comes along with it that lends so much credibility to the story.
Exactly right, dude. So let's talk about perhaps one of perhaps some objective evidence that this could be real. So 2007, right? Fast forward about 15 years after the chess match ends.
Yeah.
There was a neuropsychiatrist and amateur chess expert, Vernon Nappa, who carried out a computer analysis of all the moves.
Oh, yeah.
Remember, they were recorded, they were written down. So he actually went ahead, put them into his fancy computer, analyzed the moves using the software.
Does this look like the old Hungarian dead chess guy?
Listen to this.
Yeah.
As I told you.
Yeah.
Maroczy, strong endgame player.
One of the best.
Also, Nepi noted, the chess techniques improved over the course of the 20th century so that Maroczy would likely play only at a master level by the standards of his day. So not only did his moves conform to what would be considered Maroczy's signature move, but also, don't forget, he died before, the game continued on, evolved, people got better.
That is a very fascinating point.
It's bonkers, dude.
I never would have thought of that.
No, I know. Well, these are chess masters. These guys are geniuses. What is also weird is the fact that I guess there was a theory that was developed in the 1950s after Maroczy had died. And famously during this match, Maroczy was caught in a chess opening variation of that. And because I guess if you're going to believe this, like he wasn't
never
equipped.
seen it before.
Exactly.
He didn't know.
Exactly.
Every chess player at that level after that had studied it and learned it and read about it in books and been taught it and everything else. But he's like, whoa, what's happening? What's this brand new chess stuff? My mind is blown.
Yeah, that's exactly it, dude.
Oh, my God. This is bonkers.
I would also say that what became very, very clear, not only through some of the analysis done by this Vernon Nepa, but also by others, is they've looked at the moves, they've looked at the circumstances of the game, and they all conclusively said, there's no way a person can just guess these moves.
Dude, I don't know why I know this random bit of trivia, but apparently there are 10 to the 124th power chess moves possible, which would be a number greater than the number of atoms in the known universe. So it would be impossible. It would be impossible to guess the moves.
Not only guess them, but also it would be impossible to learn it as you're going and perform at this level. And not only that, but you would have to be a literal chess grandmaster.
Well, not even a chess grandmaster, a chess grandmaster that's so good you can emulate a previous chess master.
Yeah, that's right.
And not tip your hand when you see a common opening. That is bonkers.
So
what's going on? This implies that the dead are coming back and playing chess, man. I can't live comfortably with that knowledge.
Same. But we got to poke some holes in it. Why did
he lose? Was he rusty? Was he not playing chess while he was dead? Come on.
There was an actual quote here, and I got to look for my notes. But basically, it was saying something to the effect of, it was like playing a chess master that was pretty rusty. I mean, that's what, Korchnoi actually said something to that effect. I got to,
I could see the skills. They were good,
It's he just hasn't played in a few years. It's basically
his curveball was a little bit off,
Yeah. Lost his
fastball. Didn't quite have the zip, but you could see it was there.
Dude, that's exactly it. So it's like playing against your old man or something in ping pong. You're like, okay, well, after, the first couple of games, et cetera. So anyways.
Oh, my God. Okay, so let's poke some holes. That's what I'm here for.
Well, we both can, and in fact, some scientists have actually gone back and looked at this. There were some self-described skeptics, some scientists, the last names May and Marwa, and what they said was that, not enough evidence was, proffered in terms of the role played by Rollans. So Rollans...
That is fair.
I think that's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's totally fair.
You're taking this guy at his word. That being said, we've also said it's next to impossible to make it up or learn it on the fly, but still, we're really lending this guy a lot of slack here.
That's exactly right. On top of that, they also said, hey, look, these were not perfect laboratory settings.
Very true.
Which I think is actually a real problem to this. I will say, they probably should have set up a lab somewhere and somehow done this a different way, but, it's I think probably Korchnoi was just like, whatever, let's just do this.
It's I don't know, I'm having fun. Who cares?
Another skeptic and chess aficionado, Pepijn van Erp, he critiqued the case in 2017, and he said, evidently the moves were not done by a very good chess player. He suggested that an amateur player such as Eisenbeiss could have made the moves.
Interesting.
And so,
that's, kind of what I was getting at earlier. It's what's his role here? He did like chess. He enjoyed it. He had maybe.
Well, and and there are different theories about different moves. Perhaps Eisenbeiss had access to those types of things and could have relayed things. But I guess, like I said earlier, all this is written down kind of by both parties. So it's maybe Eisenbeiss would have had to tell Rollans what to do, and then he'd write it down.
Like the two were in on it or something like that.
Yeah. Also, maybe one other point here, and this is kind of going back to this Van Erp guy, he was saying that the choice of opening was not typical for Maroczy.
Oh.
And so what he said was, like, he went back and looked at it and he goes, well, he maybe didn't agree 1-for-1 with the analysis that was done by the previous scientists who said, yeah, this looks like a pretty classic game of chess, pretty classic Maroczy.
Okay.
But it's all just at this point, like, you know, he said versus he said.
Sure.
So where do you come down, Tim?
It's not 100% because there are legitimate concerns with the controls here. So
Yeah.
number one is what's that German economist doing with this whole thing? You
Right.
cut him out of the equation, and if I knew a little bit more about the medium, I'd be like, yeah, slam dunk, like incontrovertible proof, you know?
Yeah.
So you got him. It's like, what's his purpose? Why is he involved? What's he doing? So on and so forth. But at the end of the day, like I said, it's not so much the chess game because, you know, like you, I understand the game to a point,
Yeah.
but it's like, I don't know. It's everything else that came with it. It's the 81 questions. It's the, oh, did you actually mean so-and-so? Because I think you spelled his name wrong. It's like, what? How the God you do that? That's crazy. I mean, also maybe because the medium was really getting into it and really, you know, finding it interesting. Maybe he went to the library. Maybe he wanted to learn more about this guy. Maybe he did a little bit of research. He's like, oh yeah, I do. You know, I did read about that game with his friend where he got beat or something like that.
Totally. That's where my head was at too. It's like, it's not a perfectly controlled, you know, setup here.
That being said, unfortunately, the reason, you know, sci things are so weird and science won't recognize them is because they don't conform. You can't do them in lab settings. It's like, how do you know, like sit down and be like, okay, dead Hungarian chess master, we have, you know, an hour and 40 minutes. We got to do all the moves right here.
Exactly, dude.
It's like, I don't know. They control everything, right? They got stuff going on.
I think
they got dinner parties to go to too.
It's admirable they even tried.
All that being said, this is probably one of the most interesting and just believable things I've come across that you've mentioned.
Yeah, I am kind of right there with you. I feel like there's enough coincidence stuff here to be a coincidence. Like there really just is at this point.
It's super weird. I do find it fascinating that the one guy's like, yes, definite standard, you know, typical Hungarian openings. And the other guy's like, yeah, yes, but maybe not.
Right.
But then again, like, you're not going to play the same game every single time.
Well, that's exactly it. And Korchnoi and you know, Maroczy had never played before. So let's kind of wrap this up here. So interestingly, like I said, Eisenbeiss still alive. Come on the show.
Yes. Explain your role.
Kommen Sie hier, bitte. Next, so Korchnoi passed away a few years ago. But I found one kind of interesting little tidbit here about Rollans.
Oh, do say.
So Rollans actually died 2 weeks after the game ended.
Oh, that's sad.
That's sad. And I guess before the whole thing even started, one of the first things that Maroczy told Rollans was, and I'm quoting here, "And you, dear Robert, will convey the game to the end." Which makes you wonder, was he implying the end of Rollans' life or the chess game or both?
Or both. It's like, don't worry, you'll finish. But after that, I'll see you soon.
Right.
That is too much, man. That is too much. Makes me want to play chess. Just get All right, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Like Zach mentioned at the beginning of the show, head on over to Patreon if you like this kind and all sorts of other ones too. We got hundreds, literally hundreds of shows over there. Where can they find them again?
Patreon.com/crackpotpodcast.
Thank you. I can't remember that for the life of me. I'll need a medium to tell me what it is next time. Okay. No, seriously. Head on over there. Sign up if you want more shows like that. Otherwise, rate, review, subscribe. Tell your friends. Tell your neighbors. Tell your local grandmaster about our podcast. And we'll see you next week.
Thanks, everybody.